please take a moment to celebrate and honor this ancestral Ho-Chunk land and the sacred lands of all Indigenous peoples. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Ms. Baumann? Here. Ms. Birkenau? Here. Dr. Cooper-Stoll? Here. Dr. Garcia?
Excused.
Dr. Jimenez?
Here.
Ms. Leahy? Here. Mr. Korberg?
Here.
Mr. Spivey?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. A quorum of the Board of Education is present, so the regularly scheduled meeting of August 15th, 2022 is called to order. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and face the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Tonight's agenda has previously been distributed to the board with a motion from Mr. Korberg and a second by Ms. Leahy. We will approve the agenda as submitted unless there is a motion to amend. Is there a motion to amend? Hearing no motion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion has carried, and we will move on to public speakers. It is the policy of this board to provide at its public meetings an opportunity for individuals to address the board. Comments about individual staff or personnel will not be allowed. Open meeting law prohibits the board from engaging in discussion or responding to matters not included on the agenda. All speakers are reminded that this same policy limits your time to speak to 5 minutes. This limit will be strictly enforced. And if I could ask the superintendent to keep track of the time and to please notify the speaker when the time is running out.
I will.
Thank you. You're also asked to give your name and the school district where you reside at the beginning of your time for the public record. Our first speaker tonight is Emily Moots.
In a long time. Is my voice, is that good?
Perfect.
Okay. So I'm Emily Moots. I reside in the school district of La Crosse. Hello, school board members. I'm Emily Moots, and I was an English teacher at Logan High School from 2018 to 2022. In my decision to leave teaching, I was weighted down with grief, guilt, and anxiety for months. Teaching was not just my career choice. It was a part of my identity and lifestyle. I had spent 4 years at the high school building my craft and feeling confident in my ability to continue bettering myself as an educator. When I get asked why I left teaching, I find myself struggling to come up with one answer. Was it the pay, the restless hours put into curricula, the upcoming changes that felt impossible to integrate because of the lack of support and time permitted, the lack of mental health resources for the students, my colleagues, and myself? What I know to be the truth is that teachers are being asked to do too much, and sometimes without the choice to say no. They are at capacity. And as a young professional, I saw my chance to leave a profession that was asking and taking too much of me. If policies and pay increase and expectations do not change, young teachers like me will leave. I thought I would be a teacher for my entire life. If you'd asked me even at the beginning of this last school year if I had any plans to leave education, I would have said no. I had no desire to leave teaching until I began feeling the physical and mental burdens of burnout in October of 2021. Usually quick to a workout after school, I was only able to muster the energy to walk. Despite my extroverted personality, I was beginning to isolate myself in the evenings because of my emotional exhaustion. My anxiety attacks were starting to manifest at school, where I would have to work through dizzy spells and irregular heartbeats during my lessons and activities. And if you're looking to keep quality educators in this district, you must listen to their boundaries and expectations. Respect them, hear them out, and put action to make change. Let my story stand as a warning for the result of burnout. It is not just enough to wait until the end of the school year or until the next break. All teachers deserve quality pay and advocacy in order for them to do their jobs. With active listening and honest communication, I believe in the opportunity to better support our community. In ignoring the community's concerns about the referendum for the new school and threatening to combine both high schools and Central, trust is being broken and quality teachers will leave. Many of us feel blindsided and left out of a conversation that greatly impacts our community. It is essential to communicate clearly the specific reasons why these changes must be enacted, rather than resorting to vague statements about budgetary issues. And I recognize that the school has challenging budgetary issues and has been working through some major changes, but how these changes are being made is not appropriate. I am sure many of you feel the unrest and tension bubbling in our community. One of the major issues that has been raised about the schools combining is how it will affect our Northside community. I know all of you are advocates for equity in our city, so the fact that this issue has not been publicly acknowledged or addressed beyond monetary concerns is confusing and disheartening. Transparency needs to be the top priority moving forward with these changes. Listen and respond to the complaints you are hearing from the community and your school staff. Those need to be addressed in a clear and accessible manner, not just through surveys and forums that are challenging to attend. Start with having a space for teachers to voice their concerns during contracted time. Put out statements that better outline the decision-making on why this referendum needs to happen right now. Recognize and acknowledge all of the hard work your staff has already done these past 3 years. We have changed our curriculum, grading scales, teaching styles, and now we're being asked to do more. Slow down and remember our humanity and the humanity of our students. Our community, our teachers, and our students deserve better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is our Student and School Showcase, which is the Youth Apprenticeship Student Success. Can I turn it over to Dr. Engel?
Thank you, Dr. Jimenez. So we wanted to highlight some of the neat things going on at our showcases. It's something that we had done more regularly before COVID. COVID kind of made things difficult, and so we want to reestablish that as we move forward. We've had a few already, and today we have Dr. Britta Rodering here, and she's our supervisor of career and technical education, and one element of those programs is our youth apprenticeship. And so we've got 2 students here that have participated in our youth apprenticeship, and I will turn it over to Dr. Rodering.
Hi, good evening. Good evening. Thank you for your time and thank you for your introduction, Dr. Engel. I'm Britta Rodering, Supervisor of Career and Technical Education. I'm excited to have this opportunity tonight to introduce you to 2 of our students. Our first student that I'll introduce tonight is Wyatt Wiege.
Hello.
And Wyatt is a recent graduate of Polytechnic. I'm going to give him an opportunity to share his story of his academic career plan, his pathway to graduation, and then his plans for post-graduation success.
Yeah, so I was a senior this past year at Crosse Polytechnic, and I found out about the youth apprenticeship program through Britta and a few of the other resources that I had at my school. And so after I found out about the whole program, I was very interested and I wanted to jump right into it. So Britta actually helped me kind of sort my way through what career path I kind of wanted to go down and learn more about, and I ended up in the electrical trade route. Into the registered apprenticeship program. So I'm working 40-hour weeks with them right now, and I hope to pursue that as my main career. But I've been really thankful for the program and kind of everybody that's been able to help me throughout the whole thing, especially Britta and all of her hard work she's put in for all of us, and I just really appreciate the program.
I'm going to prompt Wyatt with a couple more. Thank you for that. Okay. And they may have questions. The board members may have questions for you as well, too.
Yeah.
Wyatt, before you had an opportunity to become a youth apprentice, and I apologize for jumping into that and not explaining more of the program. I will have an opportunity to do that later tonight, but our youth apprenticeship program is a work-based learning, and so that allows a student, as Wyatt mentioned, to incorporate that into his school day. So he started out the morning. Could you share what a typical morning would be like for you when you were a youth apprentice? And so
Sure.
Instead of coming to school and starting at 8 to 10, And then going through your classes, built into Wyatt's morning schedule, it said youth apprenticeship, architecture, and construction was his pathway, and then his specific unit is electrical. So this program is run through Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. They create the curriculum, the learning outcomes, and so we utilize that in a partnership with the business. Kish was the business in Wyatt's case, to be able to have Wyatt earn and learn on site. So Wyatt, if you want to share, what would a typical morning be like for you, and maybe tell us about some of the best things you got to do during those hours.
Yeah, so my morning would start out, I would go to the job site at 6 to 7 a.m. in the morning. And so I was at the Quick Trip campus was the kind of first area where I started working. I was on a project from start to finish, which was the truck wash that they built up on the Quick Trip campus. So I got to be there from when we were down in the dirt digging deep trenches, burying all the conduit, to the very final touches of the building when we were kind of finishing everything up. But my typical morning I'd be going to work, and I'd pretty much do whatever I'd do for the day. I'd learned so many different skills and learned how to do so many different things in my career through my youth apprenticeship, which really helped me transfer into my actual career and gave me a lot of valuable skills to be able to really move into it and be very comfortable with what I do now. So yeah, but typical morning I would go to work and then I'd go to school. Usually I would leave work around 12-ish and then I'd go to a central class. I took a small engines class, and so I did a lot of fabrications and machining and things like that. And then I'd go back to La Crosse Poly for the rest of the afternoon, and I'd pretty much have open work time to work on whatever projects I was doing at the time. So yeah. Any other prompts?
One more.
All right.
Okay. When I had the opportunity to meet with Wyatt last summer, and I've only been here for a year in the district, so one of my first students I got to meet and work with, he filled out a youth apprenticeship application saying, I'm interested, I want to learn more about this. I had a chance to meet with Wyatt and his family, and that usually I can tell right away, if someone would be a strong fit. And if Wyatt hadn't been, we would have taken some steps across the district to fill the rest of Wyatt's pathway before he became a youth apprentice to help him get ready for that next step. But I could tell that Wyatt was ready. So that was really exciting. Now, finding a youth apprenticeship position with an electrician is hard to do. Fortunate to be in La Crosse and to have the partners that we do. And Kish said, and Wyatt, you probably don't know this part, well, Britta, I'll meet this kid. Oh my goodness, please, right?
Right.
And I knew for Wyatt, I wanted this to work out. So meet this kid. We talked about what to wear, where to go, what door to go in. Lots of back and forth, normal things.
Yep.
Some interview questions. His family helped him as well to prepare for that. And Jeff, who was your mentor, initial mentor, right away, he got back to me and he said, absolutely no question, we want him. So it wasn't that they necessarily wanted a youth apprentice. Oftentimes they see the same thing that I saw in you, that I think Ms. Cheryl, when I was just sitting talking to you before we started, saw in you, and knew that you were someone that they wanted to be part of their family, part of their fit, part of their team. And so as Wyatt mentioned, he's going to stay on, or he's still on with Kish, and his plan is to do something called bridging. And bridging is where his time and hours and credit attainment as a youth apprentice will roll into or bridge into, come off of the bottom of the requirements of a registered apprenticeship program. So just off of the top of your head, off the top of my head, I think you have about 1,100 hours right now. I haven't seen you in a couple months, so it may be more.
Yep.
So let's say by the end of the summer, Wyatt's at 1,300 hours. That comes off of the bottom of a 5,000-hour registered apprenticeship requirement, as well as Wyatt is leaving with a Department of Workforce Development Youth Apprenticeship credential and 6 to 9 transcripted or post-secondary level credits, depending on his institution that he goes on to and different pathways that you may walk into. So questions for Wyatt or myself so far?
Questions from the board?
I just want to know, how did you get it? I mean, how did you find out about youth apprenticeship, and how did you know electrical work was what you wanted to do?
I actually found out about the program through my high school. I can't remember exactly how it was. I have a lot of different ties with a lot of different, programs and kind of things going on. And I think it might have actually been my dad who shared it with me, who's one of the teachers at La Crosse Poly. So I think he was he might have been the reason why I found out, but I can't remember exactly. And then in terms of narrowing it down to electrical, I guess looked at a bunch of the different trades and kind of really narrowed it down to it being something that I'm like the most interested in. I've kind of done a lot of the other trades as like side hobbies and kind of other things like that, but I've just always had this like curiosity for electricity and like how it works, and there's just so much more that you can learn about the trade. That's what's like super intriguing to me, is like there's always something more to learn. It's not like you master the trade and then you just progressively get better at it. There's just a lot more knowledge you can gain about it, and just kind of like a lot more like schooling and type things like that where you can just really progress. So
Will you take more classes at TC then?
yep,
as well?
yeah, I'll be going for the electrical program next fall actually. So I'll be doing a whole bunch of different classes there. So yeah,
Good, thank you.
yeah.
Other questions from the board? Go ahead.
You said learn while you earn. Is that only credit, or are you compensated?
I was paid as well, yeah.
Okay.
Youth apprenticeship students have to be paid minimum wage or higher.
Okay, good to know.
Learn and earn.
Yeah.
Yes, one question I would have for you is, so
Yeah.
what advice would you have for other students who are going through high school and may not know about this opportunity, or maybe looking for an opportunity in the career or trades fields?
Sure. I'd say just definitely go for it. Like, I mean, you can't really hurt anything by just trying. So, I mean, just kind of getting that information out to kids. And if there's people remotely interested, I'd just say, you know, go for it and check it out. I honestly had no idea what I was getting into to begin with, but I'm really glad that I did. And I mean, it took me to where I am now, and I'm super thankful for it. But I'd just say, really just kind of, if you put your mind towards it, like just, you know, do it. So yeah, just kind of be open-minded too, and you gotta stay on top of your grades. Like, I wasn't able to do this youth apprenticeship if I was behind on my grades or anything like that, so I was able to kind of keep up on my credits, and I was actually able to do it. So it's not like anybody can do it sort of thing. Like, you have to kind of work for it too. So just having that drive mindset was really helpful.
Wonderful. Other questions from the board? If not, thank you very much, Wyatt.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm a lot shorter than Wyatt, so I'm just gonna, so it's not in my face. Yeah, that's where it started. Yeah. Yeah, my name's Paige. Sorry, is that too close? Are you good? Okay, I don't want to be yelling at you guys. So I started with working with Britta when I was a junior in high school at Polytech, and that's when I started to learn about the Youth Apprentice program, but I didn't officially become a youth apprentice until October, when Wyatt did, actually. So this is kind of like, I would like to show you my progress. Can you guys see the pictures? Okay, I just want to double check. My progress. So these were pictures of cakes that I did before starting the youth apprentice. So this was when I was working at Dairy Queen at my first job. And the first writing on the cake, I think I like practiced it a million times on the table, and you'll see the progression, I guess, until now. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. And then my first ever cake down there was like some smeared color thing. I don't know. But then I also got to explore with flowers and airbrush, and everything I did there was self-taught. So it was very limited until, there we go. Sorry, I didn't press the button not hard enough. Until I became an official youth apprentice with Britta at Festival Foods. So this is kind of like when I started and my progress and finish line. Did we skip some? There we go. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. So once I started at Festival Foods, I became a youth apprentice for about like 7 months, and my mentor, her name was Allie. She taught me how to make buttercream flowers and borders and how to ice cakes. I mean, at Dairy Queen, they were solid ice cream, so there was no frosting around the outside. It was just like whatever was on top. So I learned how to do that, how to layer cakes, how to do a drip, how to write. And then I also got to do a lot of these themed kits. So the biggest picture in there is like this campfire picture. And basically, in this little bag, there's like the plastic toy, whatever. It's like the Baby Yoda, the dinosaurs, the golf cart, the baby shark, or the camping. And it gave you this design to copy and paste pretty much. And I thought that was kind of boring at first. I was like, whatever, I'm supposed to be a cake decorator. I can't be that creative. But I actually thought it was really fun, and then I got to add elements that weren't originally there that no one got mad at, for example. So like, like no one's gonna complain for like, oh, chocolate rocks instead of frosting rocks. Yeah, I'm gonna take those chocolate rocks instead. Thank you, decorator, for seeing that. Like, oh, that's cool. You know, like stuff like that, where I was able to add my own little touch in while it was still kind of like prompted to me. And then in early June, I started at Meringue, which is where I'm at now. I'm at Meringue Bakery and Cafe, and it's owned by Jen Barney, who is I see you guys nodding your heads. You've probably heard of it. She's
Where
a
are the
two-time.
samples?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Where are the samples?
Sorry, I didn't get to bring any. We weren't open today. And so she was on Food Network 3 times, and she's a 2-time winner. And now I get to make a lot more elegant things. You can see from the last slide compared to this one. At Festival, I was doing a lot of cartoons and still flowers and stuff like that, but more kids stuff, more bright, catching to the eye, stuff like that. And then here I'm doing more wedding cakes, more elegant flowers. So there's this big cake and there's a little dog taking a bite from the back of the wedding cake. And then on the front were these like hand-piped flowers. And then there's, I guess we put some fresh flowers from Monet, which I get to walk down there usually like once a week. I get to walk down a few blocks to the fresh flower shop, get to pick up new flowers, put them in the cake. We did a cookie shard Father's Day cake for a giveaway. That honeycomb one in the middle was like a stencil I made. So I cut it out of like this plastic called acetate, which you can actually tear with your fingers. But I was able to cut it out, and we used an airbrush again to make that design. And then the leaves like kind of matched the invitation they gave us. But yeah, I mean, I got to work on palette knife flowers and real flowers, and then there's an update of my rose. There was a really big rose in the middle. It's kind of small, but there's Wyatt again. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry. In my future plans, I'm now about to enter my final year of high school, so I'm about to be a senior, and with about a year and a half of cake experience, including Dairy Queen, under my belt, I feel like I'm pretty set ahead for like where I'm gonna start. Once school starts, I plan on working at least 3 full days during like Monday through Friday, plus weekends and holidays. And then whenever I'm not at work, I'll be at school. And luckily, Meringue's downtown, so I can just easily either walk or bike, drive, and stuff like that. So it really makes it nice. And if there any way where I needed to help, this cake fell, which has happened. we need you to fix it. I can easily go over there and stuff like that. So they're really happy to have me there. And then after graduating, I hope to still be working at Meringue, maybe find a place of my own, just kind of take a break from school. I've been in it for 12 plus years. I kind of want a little break and just kind of figure out my own thing and decide if and when and where I'd want to go to culinary school, which will probably happen. I feel like I'm just not putting that on myself. I haven't picked yet. I want to give myself time to find a spot where I really like it, so I'm not wasting my time or money or effort on a spot that I'm not ready for. So, yeah.
Paige, I'm gonna have you add 2 more pieces.
All right, I figured.
So this year, I had obviously the opportunity to work with her, and I realized your talent immediately, and your
Thank you.
passion. You're welcome. And your passion for what you're doing, and to see that joy. I think everyone here tonight can see it as well too, when you talk about your work and your learning. So we were able to have her compete in a career and technical student organization that we offer, Family Career Community Leaders of America. And do you want to tell them a little bit about what area you competed in and how it went for you?
So FCCLA, I had only heard about the program until Britta brought it up to me, but there is a competition, like a category, and it was for cake decorating. Perfect. Like usually people who enter this, I guess, don't really have an experience, like a job experience, so I was kind of coming in like thinking that everyone was going to be on the same level as me. I'm sorry, I kind of crushed the field in lacrosse. Not to toot my own horn, I'm sorry. There were some, but I did get to see a Trempolo contestant who was here, and she got to move on to state, which was really exciting, and she did great. Anyway, so that's kind of where I started, and I competed locally, took that piece of cake, haha, and then I got to go to the Dells and with other central state qualifiers for FCCLA, and I made a 8-inch cake, and the theme was 75th anniversary. So it was like a red and white, black, tie-dye around the side, some roses on top, because it was like, conveniently, the FCCLA is like flower, like the flower of FCCLA, so that worked out well. And then I wrote, congratulations on 75th anniversary. But then I spelled congratulations wrong. And let me tell you, one of the most embarrassing things my mom told me. But I got a 98. So it didn't matter. They didn't say anything about it, and that probably was one of the scariest cake things I've ever done, was misspell a word. But with something that like big, and it really meant a lot to me. I got a medal and everything, and frankly, that was the first medal I ever won. I never really went to sport. I did do sports, so that was like yes. And am I gonna do it again this year? Honestly, probably not, because I just don't really have the time for it with school and then finishing out strong, and then also my youth apprentice with meringue. But it was really fun, and
We'll probably talk later.
yeah. But yeah, that's how it went. It was really good.
What Paige didn't tell you is that she also swept the state competition, and a lot of that is your own experience in your work-based learning, but the growth that I was able to see in the coordination of your placement helped prepare you for that as well, which was really neat. I have to tell one little final piece,
Go
if I
ahead.
can, before we give them a chance for questions. Our Lacrosse Engineering Academy is something that I'm fortunate to be a part of in the district. And this year, when we celebrated our seniors, we had their families come in, school administration, teachers, school counselors come in, and that morning, one of my tasks was to pick up this giant cake to celebrate and share. And I went to pick it up, made sure my back seat was completely empty because it was huge. And I'm carrying it up, and the ladies at the checkout are asking me if I need help. Nope, I'll get it. So I'm making sure, holding onto the plates. I get it out into my car, I set it down, and I see this beautiful sticker, custom decorated by Paige. And for me, it was like, that's why this looks so good. That is why this looks so good.
It was really fun. I spent a lot of time working on that. I was like, oh yeah, this is my school. Like I was going to the graduation anyway, so I had to really make it special. And it was really fun. And I wish I put a picture of it in here, but it had like edible image on it of our logo, writing, a little inside joke to some of the graduates, and a bunch of roses and stuff like that. But it was really fun, and getting to see, or having all the seniors be like, whoa, we get to eat a cake from you now. Great send off. So it was really fun, yeah.
Questions?
Questions from the board?
I really appreciated seeing your progression as you were learning. I'm just curious to know, like, what has been the most challenging thing in terms of decorating that you have accomplished to date, would you say? What was the hardest to learn?
Something I'm still working on is, and probably will forever be working on, is probably my writing. I just, at meringue, they don't write in like frosting like you kind of saw at festival. We write all in chocolate. So when I saw my new mentor whip out a little piece of parchment paper, make it into a cone, and put chocolate in it and write in it, I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I've gotten better at it, but I definitely just, even the placement, chocolate falls differently every time. And I think another skill, probably flowers. As much as I love flowers, like I like making the buttercream flowers, there's countless amount of ways to make flowers. Palette knife, fondant, gum paste, and there's still a lot of ways for me to learn. So I'm really excited for that, but flowers was definitely, and continues to be, a struggle, but also a success, so.
Other questions?
Yes. What is your favorite frosting to eat versus your favorite frosting to decorate with?
I love cream cheese frosting. Any red velvet carrot cake, it's mine. But frosting wise, it's really thick and it gets kind of gummy after, if it's like you're storing it for a little while, even in the fridge. So as much as it tastes good, my favorite to frost with is probably Swiss meringue buttercream, which is why, kind of one of the reasons why meringue was named meringue. Basically, a little science lesson for you guys, I guess. Basically, you cook white egg whites and sugar over a heat source, and then you whip it up, and it turns into this beautiful marshmallow fluff, glossy stuff. and that's why she named it meringue, because it was nice and glossy and perfect. So that, and now, I mean, then we make that into a frosting. So then that's like, it's nice and smooth. So that's my favorite.
Other questions? I don't have any.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for that. We will move on to our next item on the agenda, which is our superintendent's consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the items on the superintendent's consent agenda as presented.
Second.
The consent agenda is a mechanism that's used by the board to deal with routine business that comes before the body. Is there any items that the members want to remove from the consent agenda? So then, hearing none, with a motion by Mr. Corbrick and a second by Dr. Cooper Stoll, the items on the superintendent's consent agenda are approved as presented unless there's a motion to, unless there's objection. Is there any objection to approval? Hearing none, then we'll move on to the approval of the board consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the items on the board consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Second. So with the motion by Mr. Corberg and a second by Ms. Baumann, we will approve the items on the board consent agenda unless there is a motion to object. Is there any motion to object? Hearing none, then we will move on, and that is approved. We'll move on to the 2021-2022 fund balance designations, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Engel.
This is one of those things that falls outside the specific purview of monitoring for results or operational expectations, but is a task designated to the board. And Ms. Patty Sprang, our Executive Director of Business Services, calculates this at the end of the year, and will explain this year's.
Sure, so this is done at the end of the fiscal year, and it is for our board to review and approve, and the auditors will be looking for that approval. So this is not just our operating funds. These are all of our different funds within the district. And many of our funds are restricted for certain use. So that would include Fund 21, which is for donations and scholarships. Fund 38 and 39, those are our debt funds. Then there's Fund 41, 42, those are our capital improvement funds. And Fund 50 for our food service. And then Fund 80 is our community service funds. So those funds, just because of the nature of them, cannot be used for anything but those areas. So the first part is the non-spendable fund balances. They're usually prepaid amounts that are in our fund balance at this point. And remember, we're looking at a snapshot in time, June 30th, the end of our fiscal year. They might be spent by July 1st, but at 6:30, they're still in the fund balance. So the restricted fund balance is the next section. We have two new sections in there that are restricted because we have self-funded dental insurance now, so those funds are restricted. And then our government COVID relief funds and Get Kids Ahead grants. So those were dollars from the state of Wisconsin for specific purposes. In our case, we did not spend those in the 21-22 school year. So they are restricted for use in 22-23 for those purposes within those grants. We also have the Common School Fund that we need to restrict that balance to be used in the next year. Then we have our capital projects, that was our Fund 40 and 42, our debt service funds, and our scholarship, and then our school nutrition. So the next part is our committed fund balance. This is the most important part that our auditors are looking for board approval. You are committing these funds from the fund balance, from the operating funds, for use in the next year. And as we have been talking about, we are anticipating that we are going to have a deficit next year. So these funds are being set aside that perhaps they weren't spent in 21-22, and so that we will need them to offset our deficit in the next year. So the first one is our technology lease. We have 2 more years left on our technology lease, and we want to make sure that we have funds set aside for that. Then we have our capital expenditures, which we usually put at least $1 million away for that, just because of our aging buildings and unexpected expenditures there. Then we have our capital expansion building renovation. So just in case the referendum wouldn't pass, we have to make some changes within our buildings to accommodate our students. We have some money set aside for that. Then the last one is the budget shortfall that we are expecting, that we want to make sure that we have funds there so we can continue to pay our bills and pay our staff. The next area is the signed fund balance. That is, we have the Fund 80, the Community Service Fund. That is our balance at the end of this year. Our class size needs, we always set aside some money in case we would have an influx of students and have to perhaps hire another teacher at the last minute or make some accommodations for our students. Then we have the unexpected budget shortfall of $250,000. We had this dental rebate for a couple of years now, but we're kind of saving it in case our dental insurance costs go up, that we could maybe alleviate some of that impact. Then we also have, the next 2 have to do with our technology projects, have money set aside for those. And then, of course, our donations. Those are donations that we've received in the last year for specific purposes, and so those have to be reserved. Now, the next part is the unassigned fund balance. And according to our policy, we need to have 15 to 20% of our expenditures set aside for unassigned fund balance. And the first one is our revenue stabilization, meaning that we have a lot of reimbursable grants, but we have to spend that money before we can claim it and get reimbursed. So you need to have funds available for those expenditures, and eventually it'll get reimbursed. Then we have the unassigned fund balance for capital needs, meaning cash flow. We get to a point in November, December, where our fund balance is only about $3 million. And we need to use some of the savings. So I shouldn't say our fund balance, but I should say our operating bank account. So we need to have something in there so that we can pay people before our tax revenue comes in January. And that's where we set aside that $20 million. Then we have, of course, unassigned fund balance for contingencies and emergencies. And then the other part of unassigned fund balance is whatever's left. So when they, I should say the state is looking at schools' fund balances, they are not, they have to look at beyond just our operating fund balances and our other fund balances, which are restricted for other use, and then also the unassigned fund balance so that we can not have to short-term borrow, which causes another expense for the district. So this is the set aside for next year according to what was left as of June 30th. So I know you might have some questions, and I'd be happy to answer those.
Questions from the board? Okay. I do have some questions, Ms.
Sure.
Sprang, if you could help us out. I noticed that our debt service from 2021-22, the difference between that year and the year before is quite high.
Mm-hmm.
Could you explain that?
Sure. So we levy in the previous year for debt payments that are due in this September, because we have no money coming in for debt service. So we're always levying for the payment we make in March and then the following September. So those funds are set aside for debt payments in the coming year.
And same thing with the school nutrition. I noticed that there was a little bit of a difference there.
School nutrition, yes, that's a good point. I wanted to talk about that. So we, of course, had free meals all year long, and we had a higher reimbursable rate for those free meals. So we were getting more money from the government for food and everything to offset the reimbursable meals, that we weren't getting any money from anybody else. So the other part is that Marilyn Bolden, who's our school nutrition supervisor, also wanted to buy some equipment this year, some stoves and things, and as you know, there was a supply chain issue, so she has some money set aside for new ovens and other equipment that didn't come in time to spend it in the last fiscal year, but actually is coming in this summer, plus the renovation at Central. It includes the kitchen, so she's using some of those funds for the kitchen renovation there, too. So that'll be gone in the next year.
Those were the biggest questions I had that I noticed were large differences and just wanted to verify. Ms. Bergedal.
I just want to make sure I understand this document correctly.
Sure.
So these are all the fund balances as of 6/30/22. So do these are the amounts that are kind of preloaded to carry through for the 22-23 school year?
Right, so once you approve these, there's different fund balance account numbers that we have to move these funds there. And then the auditors check to make sure that they all are in the right place.
Okay. Just one more question. What is the deadline for spending the CRF and GKA grants?
I believe it's 2024, just like our ESSER 3.
Thank you.
Any other final questions?
And these funds can't be moved into any other category except for the one that it's labeled under, correct?
Correct. For this year. And so then at the end of next fiscal year, you will go through the same exercise and see this. I think it'll also be a little bit clearer when we present the budget for next year, because you also see the end of this year and also the end of the prior year. So you see that fund balance and then how it's used. Remember, this year we for the first time in a long time, we presented to you a balanced budget. And actually, it is, our revenues exceeded our expenditures, so we're adding a little bit to our fund balance because of those things like those grants that we didn't spend, that we will spend in the next year, will help that deficit, and also that $2 million that we've set aside, so.
Other questions? Hearing none. Then we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the final 2021-22 committed, assigned, and unassigned fund balance designations as presented.
Is there a second? Okay. So moved by Mr. Korberg and a second by Dr. Hooper Stoll to accept the final 2021-2022 committed, assigned, and unassigned fund balance designations as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion has carried, and we'll move on to the information item, which is Operational Expectation Monitoring Report, OE9, communicating with the public and key stakeholders. Dr. Engel.
So we often bring back our monitoring reports for feedback for next year so that we can make changes if need be, so that we have a year to be able to make those changes. One of the things that we talked about was in indicator 2 of 9.1. And just thinking about, what we might add there or what might change there. But as board members, you might have questions or suggestions across the OE. So I would offer up that I think the indicator is good for OE 9.1, indicator 2. I think what we were talking about was more the evidence and thinking about like kind of some of the critical issues that might be going on in our school district at a given time. And so we highlighted a generic thing and a specific thing, but I think there may be an opportunity to add more evidence around key issues in the school district annually. And so I'm thinking, is there's a process where we examine kind of what we project out for the year and then ensure that we have robust information and evidence to present at the end of the next year. And then also maybe check in with the board at some point in the meantime to say, hey, here's those big ideas that we were talking about at the beginning of this monitoring process. Here's where we're at with that. Are there other things that would give us another 6 months, say, to ensure that we've monitored and provided the evidence the board's looking for? So I think there's maybe a way to check in on this one biannually, and maybe the other communication one that we have, to ensure that we're hitting the mark and providing the evidence the school board's interested in. So those were my thoughts there. I think the indicator's good. I think it's in the evidence and how we just be responsive to the board and what the school board's looking for the evidence there. And so open to thoughts.
So the big ideas are kind of the big issues going on in the school district. So like picking things ahead of time. Is that kind of what you meant by big ideas that you would be offering communication on?
The indicator, indicates regarding the direction of the district and to build understanding and support for the district, so that's pretty broad.
Yeah.
But budget things have been something
Yep.
that I think is important to ensure that there's good two-way communication and support for the district for. So that would be an area I can imagine for the future. Referendum planning would be another one for the remainder of this monitoring period. Maybe facilities directions and the direction of the facilities in general might be, an area. And those are the ones that rise to the top for me right now, but there may be others that the school board is thinking about, that are way on folks' minds. And as we go through the year, things will come up too, right? Like there will always be things, whether it's new legislation or the biennium budget, or there's some, ongoing themes, budgets and facilities that we'll always be grappling with, but there may be some, one-offs that the board will want monitored on as well to feel confident that the administration has provided the evidence for that indicator.
Dr. Bristol?
Well, my first question was, just refresh my memory, Ms. Bauman, this was the one that you brought up before, right?
Yep.
Can you remind me what the concern was?
So that was 2 weeks ago, very shortly after communication went out to the district about the referendum and a possible outcome if the referendum fails. And there was community response to that, saying they had not heard the budget warnings, or that they weren't included in the discussion for the long-range facility plan. And at the time, as I was looking at the report, like when we look at the indicator and we look at the evidence, I could say like, yes, this evidence proves that the district is in compliance. That's fair, but there seemed to be something missing if we're hearing. And I've been thinking about this for the last 2 weeks. And it is a challenge because you can't knock on every door and talk to every person about everything going on in the district. And so I was trying to think of like, what else could we do to increase communication? And I know that the Tribune is kind of our preferred communication method for things happening with the board and in the district. But it does cost money to subscribe, so I was trying to think of different ways to connect with the community in a reasonable way, where if you are paying attention, you'll pick up on things. I think it's especially hard with like media fragmentation and people consuming news from their one space, and if the news isn't covering what's being discussed in a board meeting, which might not be super exciting, then they'll miss out and feel like the communication hasn't happened. And that's not on the community. I think that's on us to find ways to connect with the community better. And like, I wish I had like perfect answers, and I've been trying to think of like, what are the holes? Where can we find new ways to reach out to people in a reasonable way? I think connecting over email to parents and staff is great, but it leaves out all of the rest of the community that we don't have the email accounts for. So we don't have that direct communication. So maybe tapping into like alumni groups or something and trying to speak at their events, or offering like town halls or things like that around the difficult or the big ideas or the big things, big issues coming on, or like a state of the district once a year. These are the things. Because I think some of the feedback that I have been getting is around the budget, just like surprise that there is this issue. And I think when we talk about declining enrollment, if we're not spelling out what that means, it's confusing, like, well, okay, so why don't you just raise my taxes? We can't unless we go to referendum. So it's a super complex problem, and I think trying to find the solutions is difficult, but I think there are ways we could try to improve just putting more information out. You could always do a survey, ask people how they want to receive information or something like that, but I don't know. Those were my thoughts for the last 2 weeks. So
I appreciate that, Ms. Baum. So I'm also thinking about this, that's helpful, from a monitoring perspective as well, because if I understand you correctly, what you're saying, Dr. Engel, is that, well, maybe we do this on a biannual basis because things come up within a district. I think I would need to think more about whether or not the monitoring process needs to be changed for that, or whether or not it's just a matter of the regular communication that is put out there.
I see it almost more as a check-in, not like a full monitoring. Just like,
Okay,
like
okay.
highlighting, hey, this 9.1, this is an area of focus for the board on an informational item. We just discuss, like, hey, what are the things, these are the 3 things that we identified as kind of like key issues 6 months ago. This is what we've done to now, and looking for feedback on that. But then also, are there new issues that are popping up for you or that you're hearing? Maybe we've already started some communication around that and we can discuss that, but we just want to make sure that we're meeting the school board's expectations in terms of the evidence we deliver on these operational expectation monitoring reports. And so I just thought of that as a potential way just to, if this is something the board's focused on, let's find a way to like be more focused on it and just ensure that when we get to the end of this, we're in compliance, we meet the board's expectations. And I don't think it's, it's maybe a 10-minute discussion 6 months from now, just to look back and then look forward. So that's my thoughts, because I think the indicator is good. I think it's in the evidence and the school board feeling confident that, around financial issues, we've done what we could do. Maybe not everybody heard it because of whatever reasons, but, there multiple strategies were tried. We feel like we've reasonably informed the public, or not, and you need to do better, and here's some suggestions. So those are my thoughts.
Other thoughts or questions from the board?
So it's just coming back forward at this point for you to share that information?
So
Or
at
were you
this
looking
point,
for something,
I think
some input?
the monitoring report's good.
Okay.
And so what I would be proposing is that 6 months from now, we'll put it on a school board agenda item and we'll work with the school board president, and it would be a topic of discussion for information.
I think one thing that maybe we should consider for board members to think about through your conversations with the community, but with each other, is also the idea of what are those big things? Are there regular big things that come up? Are there things that happen as one-offs? Referendum don't happen all the time, but budget happens all the time. Facilities happens all the time. Educational quality happens all the time. So what are those things that bubble up? What are the key things that we want to ensure we're communicating on? Because we can't communicate about everything, because then it just becomes noise. We want to make sure that we are hitting those very, very hard things right away, so that the community knows about them, feels confident that that information is out there, so that they feel confident that they are aware and that we have their best interest in mind, because that is exactly what we are trying to do. So I think that may be something for all of us to think about as well as we come up with that. That might be a good practice for us to move forward with as well. Okay. All right. If there's any other comments before we move on? Hearing none. Then I will move on to the WASB 2023 resolution proposals. I don't think we received any, Ms. Stakerwall, did we?
No, I have not received any.
Okay, then I don't think we have anything to discuss at this point in time. So we will move on then. Move on to announcements, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Birkedahl. Okay, that is totally fine. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Ms. Baumann.
I also have no announcements
Oh,
today.
we're moving on quick. So we'll move on to the announcements from the president. So just a reminder that we are moving forward with the filling of the school board vacancy. That information should be making its way to the La Crosse Tribune. I did not notice, I did not read the Tribune this morning, so I don't remember if it made it into the Tribune today or not. It did. Thank you. So that notice should allow people to know that we are accepting applications through the end of this month, and the school board will be moving forward. So if there's any questions, please contact the superintendent's office. You can contact me as well. And we are looking forward to seeing the interest of the community to fill that position. So with that, I will turn it over to Superintendent Engel.
Just a couple of updates. We have some upcoming community informational sessions. We had about 40 or 50 attend the last two, which was great. Good questions, lots of information shared, lots of good dialogue there. The next one is the 24th of August. It is virtual, so folks can log on from anywhere. And then the second is on the 25th of August, which will be at Longfellow Middle School, and we have a number of them upcoming thereafter as well. September 1st is the start of our traditional school year calendar, so that's exciting. It's right around the corner. And thank you to the school board members who were able to make it to our new teacher orientation today. Ms. Brenda Leahy, Ms. Katie Birkedahl, Ms. Annie Baumann, and Dr. Juan Jimenez.
Mr. Korberg.
And Mr. Brad Korberg. It was an awesome opportunity to welcome new teachers into our school district. It's always so exciting to see all those folks there and their enthusiasm for education. So thank you all, and that's it for me.
So then we will move on to agenda planning.
I'll make a motion to approve the September 12th, 2022 Board of Education agenda with any additions or corrections.
So we will move to approve the September 12th, 2022 Board of Education agenda with additions or corrections, which is moved by Mr. Korberg and seconded by Mr. Spivey. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion has carried. And with that, we will adjourn to the workshop up at room 209. Thank you, everybody.